The opulent ballroom of the Westbrook Manor buzzed with the chatter and laughter of New York's elite. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits, while waiters in crisp white jackets weaved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was the social event of the season, the annual charity gala hosted by the powerful Westbrook family. Amidst the glittering crowd, a petite figure in a simple, second-hand dress stood out like a sparrow among peacocks. Olivia Martinez, with her long chestnut hair pulled back in a modest bun and her warm brown eyes darting nervously around the room, clutched her small purse tightly as she tried to blend into the background. How she had ended up here was still a blur. Just this morning, she had been scrubbing floors and changing linens at the luxurious Rosewood Hotel, where she worked as a housekeeper. Then, in a twist of fate that felt more like a fairy tale than reality, she had won a raffle for a ticket to this exclusive event. The other housekeepers had pooled their money to buy tickets, dreaming of a chance to rub elbows with the rich and famous, if only for one night. "I can't believe I'm actually here," Olivia whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the string quartet playing in the corner. She took a tentative sip of champagne, the bubbles tickling her nose and making her eyes water slightly. Across the room, Ethan Westbrook, the dashing heir to the Westbrook fortune, held court with a group of admiring socialites. His chiseled jawline and piercing blue eyes had graced the covers of countless magazines, and his reputation as a ruthless businessman was matched only by his notoriety as a heartbreaker. "And then I told the board, gentlemen, we're not just building skyscrapers, we're reaching for the stars." Ethan's booming laughter echoed through the ballroom, followed by the tittering of his entourage. Olivia couldn't help but stare, mesmerized by the confidence and charisma that seemed to radiate from him. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the crowded room, and Olivia felt her heart skip a beat. Ethan's gaze lingered on her for a second longer than necessary before he turned back to his admirers. Little did anyone know that this chance encounter would set in motion a series of events that would change both their lives forever. As Olivia tried to regain her composure, she accidentally bumped into a waiter, causing him to spill a tray of drinks. The crash of breaking glass silenced the room, and all eyes turned to the mortified housekeeper. "I'm so sorry," Olivia gasped, dropping to her knees to help clean up the mess. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she heard the whispers and snickers from the crowd around her. Well, what do we have here?" A cold, aristocratic voice cut through the murmurs. Olivia looked up to see Victoria Westbrook, Ethan's mother and the matriarch of the Westbrook clan, towering over her with a look of disdain. "I don't recall seeing you on the guest list. Who exactly are you?" Olivia struggled to her feet, her hands trembling. I'm Olivia Martinez, ma'am. I won a raffle ticket from Dash." "A raffle ticket?" Victoria interrupted, her perfectly plucked eyebrows arching in amusement. "Oh, how quaint. Tell me, dear, do you often attend events where you clearly don't belong?" The crowd around them tittered, and Olivia felt her eyes stinging with unshed tears. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. "Mother, please," Ethan's voice rang out as he approached the scene. "There's no need for Dash." But Victoria was not finished. She circled Olivia like a shark smelling blood in the water. "Let me guess, a waitress?" "No, a maid perhaps?" "Your hands give you away, my dear. So rough and calloused. Not at all suited for fine crystal." Olivia's cheeks burned with shame as she instinctively hid her hands behind her back. The very hands that had worked tirelessly to support her ailing grandmother and put her younger sister through college now felt like a mark of disgrace in this world of privilege and excess. "I think it's time for you to leave," Victoria said coldly. "This is a charity event, not a soup kitchen. Run along now, before security has to escort you out." The laughter that followed was like a physical blow to Olivia. She turned to flee, tears now streaming freely down her face, when suddenly a strong hand grasped her arm. "Wait," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the cruel laughter. "I'd like to hear more about this raffle. It sounds intriguing." Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Ethan, darling, surely you're not serious. This girl is Dash. A guest at our event, Mother," Ethan finished firmly. "And we Westbrooks pride ourselves on our hospitality, don't we?" A tense silence fell over the ballroom as mother and son locked eyes in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Victoria's lips curled into a brittle smile. "Of course, darling. How charitable of you." Olivia stood frozen, caught between gratitude towards Ethan and a desperate desire to disappear. As the crowd slowly dispersed and the party resumed its previous rhythm, Ethan turned to her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Now then, Miss Martinez," Olivia supplied quietly. "Olivia Martinez." "Miss Martinez," Ethan continued smoothly. "Why don't you tell me more about yourself? I find I'm suddenly very curious about the woman who's caused such a stir at our little gathering." As Olivia began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper, she had no idea that her simple words would be the first thread in a tapestry of love, betrayal, and redemption that would change the Westbrook family forever. Across the room, Victoria Westbrook watched the interaction with narrowed eyes, her manicured nails tapping against her champagne flute. "Oh, Ethan," she murmured to herself. "What are you getting yourself into?" Little did any of them know that Olivia Martinez carried a secret that would shake the very foundations of their gilded world. ******. The weeks following the charity gala passed in a whirlwind for Olivia. Despite her initial humiliation, Ethan had seemed genuinely interested in her story, listening intently as she spoke of her struggles and dreams. To her amazement, he had asked for her number at the end of the night, promising to stay in touch. And stay in touch he did. What started as occasional text messages soon blossomed into long phone calls and, eventually, clandestine meetings in quiet cafes far from the prying eyes of New York's high society. Olivia couldn't believe it. Here she was, a simple housekeeper, being courted by one of the most eligible bachelors in the city. It felt like a dream, and she was terrified of waking up. "You're different, Olivia," Ethan told her one afternoon as they strolled through Central Park. The autumn leaves crunched beneath their feet, a riot of red and gold against the gray city backdrop. "You're real in a way that no one in my world is. It's refreshing." Olivia blushed, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm just me, Ethan. Nothing special." Ethan stopped, turning to face her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But you are special, Olivia. You're kind, hardworking, and despite everything life has thrown at you, you still see the good in people. Do you know how rare that is?" As he leaned in to kiss her, Olivia's heart soared. For a moment, all her doubts and insecurities melted away. This was real. This was happening. But reality had a cruel way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. "Ethan? Ethan Westbrook, is that you?" The shrill voice cut through their intimate moment like a knife. Olivia opened her eyes to see a statuesque blonde woman approaching, her designer heels clicking purposefully on the pavement. "Cassandra," Ethan said, his voice tight as he stepped away from Olivia. "What a surprise." "Oh, darling, you know I love my afternoon walks in the park," Cassandra trilled, her eyes flickering dismissively over Olivia before focusing solely on Ethan. "I've been trying to reach you for days. Daddy is simply dying to discuss the merger with you." Olivia felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. Merger? Daddy? Who was this woman? Ethan cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Cassandra, this is Olivia." "Olivia, this is Cassandra Sinclair. Her father is a business associate of mine." "Charmed, I'm sure," Cassandra said without even glancing at Olivia. "Now, Ethan, about that dinner with Daddy." As the two continued to talk business, Olivia felt herself fading into the background. The easy rapport she had shared with Ethan moments ago seemed to evaporate in Cassandra's presence, replaced by a formality that made Olivia acutely aware of the vast differences in their worlds. When Cassandra finally sauntered away with a promise to have her assistant call Ethan's assistant, an awkward silence fell between them. "I'm sorry about that," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. "Cassandra can be intense." "Who is she, really?" Olivia asked quietly, dreading the answer. Ethan sighed. "Her father owns Sinclair Industries. We've been in talks about a potential merger for months. It's complicated." "And Cassandra? What is she to you?" The pause before Ethan's answer felt like an eternity. "She's a friend of the family. Our parents have always hoped, well, it doesn't matter. What matters is how I feel about you, Olivia." But the seed of doubt had been planted. As they continued their walk, the easy conversation of before was replaced by stilted small talk. Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she had just glimpsed the real world Ethan inhabited, a world of mergers, society connections, and expectations that someone like her could never hope to fulfill. That night, as Olivia lay in her small apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling, she allowed herself to cry for the first time since the gala. What had she been thinking, believing that someone like Ethan Westbrook could ever truly be interested in someone like her? Little did she know that across town, in his luxurious penthouse, Ethan Westbrook was pacing restlessly, a glass of scotch in hand, wrestling with emotions he had never experienced before. For the first time in his life, the path that had always been so clear to him, a path of wealth, power, and carefully orchestrated alliances, suddenly seemed suffocating. As dawn broke over the city, two hearts ached with the weight of unspoken truths and the fear of an uncertain future. But fate, it seemed, was not finished with Olivia Martinez and Ethan Westbrook. The stage was set for a drama that would test the limits of love, loyalty, and the power of long-buried secrets to shape the course of lives. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The Rosewood Hotel bustled with its usual morning activity as Olivia pushed her cleaning cart down the plush carpeted hallway. Her muscles ached from a restless night, her mind still replaying the encounter in the park over and over again. "Earth to Olivia!" A cheerful voice broke through her reverie. Her coworker and best friend, Mia Chin, was waving a hand in front of her face. "You okay, girl? You look like you've seen a ghost." Olivia forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired. Lots on my mind." Mia's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "This wouldn't have anything to do with that mystery man you've been sneaking off to see, would it? Spill the tea, sister." For a moment, Olivia was tempted to confide in her friend, to pour out all her fears and doubts about her relationship with Ethan. But the words stuck in her throat. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? "It's complicated," Olivia finally said, turning back to her work. Mia opened her mouth to press further, but was interrupted by the shrill voice of their supervisor, Mrs. Hawkins, echoing down the hallway. "Martinez. Chin. Less chatter, more work. We have VIPs arriving this afternoon, and I want this floor spotless." As they hurried to finish their tasks, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She had no idea how right she was. Later that afternoon, as Olivia was changing the linens in one of the hotel's luxury suites, she heard the door open behind her. Assuming it was Mia or another housekeeper, she called out without turning around, "I'll be done in just a minute." "Take your time," a familiar voice responded, sending a jolt through her body. "I'm in no hurry." Olivia spun around to find Ethan Westbrook standing in the doorway, looking as handsome and out of place as ever in his tailored suit. "Ethan! What are you doing here?" she gasped, suddenly acutely aware of her plain uniform and messy hair. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "I had to see you, Olivia. I couldn't stop thinking about yesterday, about the way we left things. I needed to explain." Olivia's heart raced as Ethan moved closer. Part of her wanted to run, to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak she saw coming. But a larger part, the part that had been dreaming of a fairy tale ending since she was a little girl, kept her rooted to the spot. "Olivia, I know our worlds are different," Ethan began, his blue eyes intense with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "But when I'm with you, none of that matters. You make me want to be a better man, to break free from the expectations that have controlled my life for so long." He took her hands in his, and Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine. "I'm falling in love with you, Olivia Martinez. And it terrifies me." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. Olivia's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, warnings, doubts, hopes, and dreams all colliding in a dizzying whirlwind. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she saw a vulnerability there that stripped away all her defenses. "I'm falling in love with you too, Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of her admission. As their lips met in a passionate kiss, Olivia felt as though she were standing on the edge of a cliff, about to take a leap into the unknown. Little did she know that the ground beneath her feet was far less stable than she could have ever imagined. Unbeknownst to the couple lost in their embrace, a pair of cold, calculating eyes watched through the crack in the door. Victoria Westbrook's lips curled into a sneer as she observed her son kissing the maid. This simply would not do. It was time to remind Ethan of his place in the world, and to teach this presumptuous little nobody a lesson she would never forget. As Victoria slipped away, already formulating her plan, the seeds of a scandal that would rock New York's high society to its core were sown. And at the center of it all, Olivia Martinez, a woman with a past far more complex than anyone could have guessed, was about to find herself in the fight of her life. The stage was set for a drama of epic proportions, where love would be tested, loyalties would be strained, and long-buried secrets would finally come to light. In the glittering world of the Westbrooks, where appearances were everything and power was the ultimate currency, Olivia Martinez was about to become the center of a storm that would leave no one unscathed. As Victoria Westbrook's heels clicked menacingly down the hotel corridor, her mind raced with possibilities. She had always known her son had a rebellious streak, but this was beyond the pale. A maid? It was laughable, if it weren't so utterly horrifying. "This ends now," Victoria muttered to herself, pulling out her phone and dialing a familiar number. "Charles? It's Victoria. I need you to dig up everything you can on an Olivia Martinez. She works as a housekeeper at the Rosewood Hotel. Leave no stone unturned." Back in the hotel room, blissfully unaware of the machinations already in motion, Ethan and Olivia finally broke apart, both breathless and flushed. "Ethan, Olivia began, her mind whirling with a mixture of elation and fear. "What does this mean? For us?" Ethan took a deep breath, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "It means I'm done living my life according to other people's expectations, Olivia. I want to be with you, no matter what anyone else thinks." The sincerity in his eyes made Olivia's heart soar, but a nagging doubt still gnawed at the back of her mind. "But your family, your company." "Ethan, I can't ask you to give all that up for me." "You're not asking, I'm choosing," Ethan said firmly, taking her hands in his. "For the first time in my life, I'm making a decision based on what I want, not what's expected of me. And what I want is you, Olivia." As they stood there, lost in each other's eyes, the outside world seemed to fade away. But reality had a way of intruding, even in the most perfect moments. A sharp knock on the door made them both jump. "Housekeeping!" Mrs. Hawkins' voice called out. "Is everything all right in there?" Panic flashed across Olivia's face. If she was caught in a compromising position with a guest, she'd lose her job for sure. Ethan, sensing her distress, quickly took charge of the situation. "Everything's fine," he called back, smoothing down his suit. "Just checking on the minibar restocking. Very thorough job, I must say." There was a pause, and then Mrs. Hawkins' dubious voice came again. "Very well, sir. Miss Martinez, please report to me when you're finished." As the sound of footsteps retreated, Olivia let out a shaky breath. "That was close," she whispered. Ethan nodded, his expression turning serious. "Olivia, I meant what I said. I want to be with you. But I understand if this is too much, too fast. I know my world can be overwhelming." Olivia bit her lip, torn between her growing feelings for Ethan and the very real fears about what a relationship with him would mean. "I need some time," she said finally. "To think, to process all of this. Can you understand that?" "Of course," Ethan said, though she could see a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." With one last, lingering kiss, Ethan left the room, leaving Olivia alone with her swirling thoughts and the lingering scent of his cologne. Little did either of them know that time was a luxury they didn't have. Forces were already in motion that would test their fledgling relationship to its very limits. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 2 weeks later, Olivia found herself standing in front of her small bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at her. Gone was her usual ponytail and minimal makeup. Instead, her long chestnut hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and her eyes were accentuated with subtle but flattering makeup. Tonight was the night. After days of soul-searching and long talks with Mia, Olivia had decided to take a leap of faith. She was going to give her relationship with Ethan a real chance, despite all the obstacles they faced. Ethan had invited her to a charity auction at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, their first official public outing as a couple. The thought made Olivia's stomach churn with a mixture of excitement and terror. "You can do this," she told her reflection, smoothing down the front of the elegant burgundy dress Ethan had sent over. It fit her perfectly, hugging her curves in a way that made her feel both beautiful and completely out of her element. A honk from outside jolted her out of her reverie. The car Ethan had sent was here. Taking a deep breath, Olivia grabbed her clutch and headed out, ready to step into a world she had only ever glimpsed from the sidelines. The ride to the museum was a blur of nerves and anticipation. As the car pulled up to the grand entrance, Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The steps were lined with New York's elite, draped in designer gowns and dripping with jewels. For a moment, her old insecurities threatened to overwhelm her. But then she saw him. Ethan stood at the top of the steps, looking devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo. The moment he spotted her, his face lit up with a smile that made her heart skip a beat. As Olivia made her way up the steps, she could feel the curious stares and hear the whispers. But with each step, her confidence grew. By the time she reached Ethan, she was standing tall, a shy but genuine smile on her face. "You look absolutely stunning," Ethan murmured, taking her hand and pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "Thank you," Olivia replied, blushing slightly. "You clean up pretty well yourself." As Ethan led her into the museum, his hand resting comfortably on the small of her back, Olivia allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this fairy tale could have a happy ending after all. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. They had barely made it into the main gallery when a familiar, icy voice cut through the air. Well, what do we have here?" Victoria Westbrook stood before them, resplendent in a shimmering silver gown, her eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of her son with Olivia. "Mother," Ethan said, his voice tight. "You remember Olivia. How could I forget? Victoria's lips curled into a cold smile. Our little charity case from the gala. Though I must say, she cleans up rather nicely. Almost passes for one of us. Olivia felt her cheeks burning with humiliation, but Ethan's grip on her waist tightened protectively. That's enough, Mother, he said firmly. Olivia is my guest tonight, and I expect you to treat her with respect. Victoria's eyebrows arched in mock surprise. Your guest? Oh, Ethan, darling, surely you jest. What would Cassandra say? Cassandra has nothing to do with this, Ethan replied, his jaw clenching. Olivia and I are together now, Mother. I suggest you get used to the idea. A tense silence fell over the trio, broken only by the gentle murmur of the crowd around them. Olivia could feel curious glances being thrown their way, and she wished desperately that the floor would open up and swallow her whole. Finally, Victoria spoke again, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Well, isn't this charming? I do hope you know what you're doing, Ethan. The board might not look too kindly on their CEO fraternizing with the help. With that parting shot, Victoria glided away, leaving Ethan and Olivia standing in stunned silence. I'm so sorry about that, Ethan said softly, turning to face Olivia. My mother can be difficult. Olivia forced a smile, trying to ignore the sick feeling in her stomach. It's okay. I knew this wouldn't be easy. As they made their way further into the event, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of their troubles. She had no idea how right she was. Throughout the evening, Olivia found herself the subject of curious stares and not-so-subtle whispers. While some of Ethan's acquaintances were polite, if a bit bemused, others made little effort to hide their disdain. Ethan, darling, a woman with a severe blonde bob and too tight facelift cooed, air-kissing Ethan's cheeks. Who's your friend? Beatrice, this is Olivia Martinez, my girlfriend, Ethan said proudly, his arm wrapped firmly around Olivia's waist. Beatrice's eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her hairline. Girlfriend? How unexpected. And what is it you do, dear? Before Olivia could answer, another voice chimed in. Oh, didn't you know, Bea? She's a maid at the Rosewood. Quite the Cinderella story, isn't it? Olivia turned to see Cassandra Sinclair sauntering towards them, a champagne flute in one hand and a predatory smile on her face. Cassandra, Ethan said, his voice tight. I wasn't aware you were attending tonight. Oh, you know me, always up for a good cause, Cassandra replied breezily. Her eyes raked over Olivia, taking in every detail of her appearance. My, don't you clean up nicely? That dress must have cost what, 2-3 months of your salary? Olivia felt her cheeks burning with humiliation. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. That's enough, Cassandra, Ethan snapped, his patience clearly wearing thin. Olivia is here as my guest, and I won't have you or anyone else insulting her. Cassandra's eyes widened in mock innocence. Insulting? Why, Ethan, I was merely making conversation. After all, it's not every day we have someone of Olivia's background joining us. It's positively thrilling, don't you think, Bea? Beatrice, who had been watching the exchange with poorly concealed glee, nodded enthusiastically. Oh, absolutely. Tell me, Olivia dear, how does it feel to be living every little girl's dream? Landing yourself a real-life Prince Charming? The condescension in her voice was unmistakable, and Olivia felt something inside her snap. Drawing herself up to her full height, she looked Beatrice straight in the eye. I may not have been born into wealth, Mrs. Atherton, but I was raised to value kindness, hard work, and treating others with respect, qualities that seem to be in short supply here tonight. If you'll excuse us, I believe Ethan and I have an auction to attend." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Beatrice and Cassandra gaping in her wake. Ethan hurried after her, a mixture of pride and concern on his face. "Olivia, wait," he said, catching up to her in a quieter corner of the gallery. "I'm so sorry about that. I knew there would be some resistance, but I never expected." Olivia took a deep breath, willing the angry tears in her eyes not to fall. "Is this what it's always going to be like, Ethan? People looking down their noses at me, treating me like I'm some sort of gold digger or charity case?" Ethan's face fell. "No, of course not. They just need time to get to know you, to see what I see in you." But even as he said the words, Olivia could see the doubt in his eyes. The reality of their situation was finally sinking in for both of them. They came from two completely different worlds, and bridging that gap would be far more challenging than either of them had imagined. As they stood there, the weight of their circumstances pressing down on them, neither noticed the figure watching them from across the room. Charles, Victoria Westbrook's most trusted private investigator, observed the couple with keen interest, his mind already piecing together the information he had uncovered about Olivia Martinez. "Oh, Ms. Martinez," he murmured to himself, a small smile playing on his lips. "You have no idea what's coming, do you?" For in his briefcase, Charles held a file that contained secrets from Olivia's past, secrets that, if revealed, had the power to destroy not only her relationship with Ethan but the very foundations of the life she had worked so hard to build. As the auction began, with glittering jewels and priceless artworks being sold for astronomical sums, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was out of her depth. The opulence around her, which had seemed so magical at first, now felt suffocating. Ethan, sensing her discomfort, squeezed her hand reassuringly. "We don't have to stay if you don't want to," he whispered. "We could go somewhere quieter, just the two of us." Olivia was tempted, oh so tempted, to take him up on his offer. To flee this world of judgment and pretension and return to the simple, honest life she knew. But something made her stay. Perhaps it was pride, or the stubborn determination not to let the likes of Cassandra Sinclair and Beatrice Atherton win. "No," she said finally, squaring her shoulders. "I'm not going to run away. If I'm going to be a part of your life, Ethan, I need to learn to navigate this world. No matter how uncomfortable it might be." Ethan's face lit up with pride and affection. "That's my girl," he said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Just remember, no matter what anyone else thinks, you belong here. With me." As they turned their attention back to the auction, Olivia allowed herself to believe, just for a moment, that everything would work out. That love really could conquer all, even the vast chasm of class and privilege that separated them. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. For even as Ethan raised his paddle to bid on a stunning sapphire necklace to match her eyes, he had whispered to Olivia, the wheels of Victoria Westbrook's plan were already in motion. Across the room, Victoria watched the couple with narrowed eyes, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against her champagne flute. As Charles approached, a subtle nod passing between them, a cold smile spread across Victoria's face. "Well, Ms. Martinez," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the auctioneer's rapid-fire delivery. "Let's see how you handle a real scandal, shall we?" Little did Olivia know that the true test of her relationship with Ethan was yet to come. The secrets of her past, long buried and almost forgotten, were about to resurface in the most public and devastating way possible. As the auction reached its climax, with paddles raised and fortunes changing hands, the stage was set for a drama that would shake the very foundations of New York's high society. And at the center of it all stood Olivia Martinez, a woman whose humble beginnings belied a past far more complex and potentially scandalous than anyone could have imagined. The next morning dawned bright and clear, but for Olivia, it brought with it a sense of foreboding she couldn't quite shake. The events of the previous night played on a loop in her mind, the snide comments, the judgmental looks, the palpable tension between Ethan and his mother. As she got ready for work, her movements slow and distracted, Olivia couldn't help but wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. Was she truly ready for the scrutiny and pressure that came with being Ethan Westbrook's girlfriend? Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Last night was just the beginning. Don't let them get to you. We're in this together. Dinner tonight? Olivia smiled despite herself, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. But as she stepped out of her modest apartment building, Olivia's world came crashing down around her. The street was lined with reporters and paparazzi, all clamoring for her attention. Flashbulbs popped in a dizzying frenzy, and a cacophony of voices shouted questions at her. Olivia! Olivia Martinez! Is it true you're dating Ethan Westbrook? How long have you two been together? What does Victoria Westbrook think of your relationship? Olivia froze, her mind reeling. How had they found out where she lived? How did they even know who she was? As she stood there, paralyzed by shock and fear, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Olivia! Over here! She turned to see Mia waving frantically from the door of a waiting taxi. Without hesitation, Olivia pushed her way through the crowd, ignoring the microphones thrust in her face and the relentless questions. She practically dove into the taxi, slamming the door behind her. Go! Go! Mia urged the driver, who needed no further prompting. As they pulled away from the curb, leaving the mob of reporters in their wake, Olivia finally allowed herself to breathe. What just happened? She gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. Mia's face was grim as she handed Olivia her phone. You might want to see this. With trembling fingers, Olivia took the phone and felt her stomach drop. Splashed across the screen was a headline that made her blood run cold. Cinderella's story or gold digger's dream? Ethan Westbrook's secret romance with hotel maid exposed. Beneath the sensational headline was a photo of her and Ethan from the charity auction, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist as they gazed into each other's eyes. The article went on to detail their whirlwind romance, complete with quotes from anonymous sources close to the Westbrook family. Oh my God, Olivia whispered, scrolling through the article with growing horror. How did this happen? We were so careful. Mia squeezed her friend's hand reassuringly. I don't know, honey. But we'll figure this out. Have you talked to Ethan? As if on cue, Olivia's phone began to buzz insistently. Ethan's name flashed on the screen, accompanied by a photo of him smiling that now seemed to mock her. With a shaky breath, she answered the call. Ethan, Olivia, thank God. Ethan's voice was strained with worry. Are you all right? I just saw the news. I'm so sorry, I had no idea they would come after you like this. Olivia closed her eyes, fighting back tears. I'm okay. Shaken, but okay. Ethan, what are we going to do? It's a nightmare. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Ethan spoke again, his voice was filled with determination. We're going to face this head on. Together. I won't let them tear us apart, Olivia. I promise you that. As the taxi wound its way through the busy streets of New York, Olivia clung to Ethan's words like a lifeline. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of their troubles. Little did she know how right she was. Asterisk. The next few days passed in a blur of chaos and confusion. Olivia found herself thrust into a spotlight she had never asked for, her every move scrutinized and dissected by the voracious media. The Rosewood Hotel, inundated with press inquiries and paparazzi trying to sneak in for a glimpse of the now famous Maid, had placed Olivia on paid leave for her own protection. While she appreciated the gesture, the forced inactivity left her with far too much time to dwell on the storm raging around her. Ethan, true to his word, stood by her side through it all. He issued a statement to the press, confirming their relationship and asking for privacy. But his words seemed to fall on deaf ears as the media frenzy only intensified. It was on the third day of this madness that Victoria Westbrook made her move. Olivia was holed up in Ethan's penthouse, having been smuggled in under cover of darkness to avoid the paparazzi camped outside her apartment. She sat on the plush leather sofa, absently flipping through channels, each one seeming to feature some expert dissecting her relationship with Ethan. Sources close to the family say Victoria Westbrook is devastated by her son's choice of partner. Questions arise about Ms. Martinez's background. Who is she really, and what does she want from one of New York's most eligible bachelors? Insiders speculate this could be a huge blow to Westbrook Industries' image. How will the board react to their CEO's controversial romance? With a frustrated groan, Olivia turned off the TV, tossing the remote aside. She was about to call Ethan, desperate for some reassurance, when there was a sharp knock at the door. Cautiously, Olivia approached, peering through the peephole. Her blood ran cold at the sight of Victoria Westbrook standing in the hallway, impeccably dressed and wearing an expression of grim determination. For a moment, Olivia considered pretending she wasn't there. But she knew that wouldn't solve anything. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. "Mrs. Westbrook," she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. "Ethan isn't here right now." "I know," Victoria replied coolly, brushing past Olivia and into the apartment. "It's you I've come to see, my dear." Olivia closed the door, her heart pounding. She turned to face Victoria, who was surveying the penthouse with a critical eye. "I must say, you've adapted to luxury quite quickly," Victoria remarked, her tone dripping with disdain. "Tell me, does it feel good to have finally clawed your way to the top?" Olivia felt her cheeks burn with anger and humiliation. "Is that really what you think of me? That I'm just some gold digger?" Victoria's laugh was cold and mirthless. "Oh, please. What else am I supposed to think? A maid who suddenly catches the eye of one of the city's most powerful men? It's hardly a new story, my dear. Though I must admit, you've played your part well." "I love Ethan," Olivia said firmly, meeting Victoria's icy gaze. "I don't care about his money or his status. I love him for who he is." "How quaint," Victoria sneered. "And I suppose you expect me to believe that your colorful past has nothing to do with your sudden interest in my son?" Olivia felt as though she'd been slapped. "My past? What are you talking about?" A slow, predatory smile spread across Victoria's face. "Oh, come now, Ms. Martinez. Or should I say, Olivia Suarez?" The sound of her old name hit Olivia like a physical blow. She staggered back, gripping the edge of the sofa for support. How did you?" "I have my ways," Victoria said smoothly, pulling a thick file from her designer handbag. "It's amazing what money can uncover. Your time in foster care, your troubled teenage years, your brief stint in juvenile detention. Oh, and let's not forget the reason for your hasty name change and relocation to New York." Olivia felt the room spinning around her. The secrets she had worked so hard to bury, the past she had fought to overcome, it was all there, laid bare in the manila folder Victoria held like a weapon. "What do you want from me?" Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible. Victoria's eyes glittered with triumph. "It's quite simple, really. I want you to end things with Ethan. Tonight. You'll tell him you've realized you don't belong in his world, that the pressure is too much. You'll disappear from his life, never to return. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the city will receive an anonymous tip about Olivia Martinez's true identity. I wonder how Ethan will react when he learns about your checkered past. Do you think he'll still want you when he knows the truth? Olivia felt as though she were drowning, the weight of her past threatening to pull her under. She had worked so hard to build a new life, to become someone she could be proud of. And now, in the blink of an eye, it was all crumbling around her. You have until midnight to make your decision, Victoria said, her voice cold and final. Choose wisely, Ms. Martinez. For both your sakes. With that, she turned and swept out of the apartment, leaving Olivia alone with the ticking clock and the weight of an impossible choice. As the door closed behind Victoria, Olivia sank to the floor, her legs no longer able to support her. The file Victoria had left behind seemed to mock her from the coffee table, a Pandora's box of secrets she had hoped would remain buried forever. With trembling hands, she reached for the file, her heart pounding in her ears. As she flipped through the pages, fragments of her past life flashed before her eyes. A police report detailing a shoplifting incident when she was just 15, desperate and hungry. Records from the foster care system outlining a troubled adolescence marked by frequent moves and behavioral issues. A juvenile court document describing her brief stint in a detention center for her involvement in a car theft, a misguided attempt to help her then-boyfriend escape an abusive home. And finally, the reason for her flight to New York and her change of identity, her unwitting involvement in a credit card fraud scheme orchestrated by people she had thought were friends. Olivia's vision blurred with tears as the full weight of her past crashed down upon her. She had worked so hard to put all of this behind her, to become someone worthy of love and respect. And now, with Victoria's ultimatum hanging over her head, it felt as though all of that hard work had been for nothing. Her phone buzzed, startling her out of her spiral of despair. It was a text from Ethan. Just got out of a board meeting. It was rough, but I stood my ground. You're worth fighting for, Olivia. I'll be home soon. Love you. A sob escaped her throat as she read his words. Ethan, sweet, trusting Ethan, who had no idea of the impossible choice she now faced. How could she break his heart? But how could she stay, knowing that her past could destroy not only their relationship but potentially his entire career? As the hours ticked by, Olivia paced the penthouse, her mind racing with possibilities. She could tell Ethan the truth, lay it all out, and hope that his love for her was strong enough to weather the storm. But even as she considered it, she knew the risk was too great. It wasn't just about them anymore. The scandal could have far-reaching consequences for Westbrook Industries and all the people who depended on it for their livelihoods. She could take Victoria's offer, disappear from Ethan's life, and spare him the pain and humiliation of her past being exposed. But the thought of never seeing him again, of living with the knowledge that she had given up on their love without a fight, made her physically ill. Or she could fight back, call Victoria's bluff, and weather whatever storm came their way. But did she have the strength for that battle? And more importantly, did she have the right to drag Ethan into it? As the clock on the wall inched closer to midnight, Olivia made her decision. With a heavy heart, she began to pen a letter to Ethan, pouring out her love, her regrets, and her reasons for leaving. She owed him that much, at least, an explanation, even if it couldn't be the whole truth. Just as she was sealing the envelope, her trembling fingers smudging the ink of Ethan's name, she heard the sound of a key in the lock. Ethan was home. Panic seized her. She wasn't ready for this, wasn't prepared to face him knowing what she had to do. In a split-second decision, she grabbed her purse and the letter, and rushed to the balcony. As Ethan's voice called out her name from the entryway, Olivia slipped out onto the fire escape, descending into the New York night with tears streaming down her face. She had no idea where she was going or what she would do next. All she knew was that she had to protect Ethan, even if it meant breaking both their hearts in the process. As she disappeared into the bustling streets of the city, blending into the anonymity of the crowd, Olivia had no way of knowing that her decision would set in motion a chain of events that would shake the foundations of the Westbrook empire and uncover secrets far more shocking than her own. For in her haste to flee, she had left behind the file Victoria had brought, a file that contained not only the secrets of her past but also hints of a much larger conspiracy that reached to the very heart of Westbrook Industries. Back in the penthouse, Ethan stood in stunned silence, Olivia's letter clutched in his hand, his eyes scanning the words that shattered his world. My dearest Ethan, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Please know that this is the hardest decision I've ever had to make, but I truly believe it's for the best, for both of us. These past weeks have been like a beautiful dream, but it's time for me to wake up and face reality. We come from different worlds, Ethan, and no matter how much we might wish it weren't so, those differences will always be there. I can't be the person you need me to be, the partner who can stand beside you in your world of high finance and social obligations. And I won't ask you to give up everything you've worked for, everything that makes you who you are, for me. Please don't try to find me. Know that I will always cherish the time we had together, and that my love for you was real and true. Goodbye, Ethan. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. All my love. Olivia. As the letter fell from his numb fingers, Ethan's gaze landed on the file lying open on the coffee table. Frowning, he picked it up, his eyes widening as he began to read. Oh, Olivia, he whispered, his heart breaking anew as he realized the true depth of her sacrifice. What have you done? But as he continued to flip through the pages, his grief gave way to confusion, and then to a slowly building anger. For among the documents detailing Olivia's past, there were other papers, financial records, internal memos, and emails that hinted at something far more sinister within Westbrook Industries. Ethan's mind raced as he pieced together the implications of what he was seeing. Embezzlement, insider trading, possibly even links to organized crime, all carefully hidden beneath the veneer of respectability that the Westbrook name provided. And at the center of it all, a name that made Ethan's blood run cold, Charles Blackwood, his mother's most trusted advisor and the man who had been like a second father to him. As the full picture began to emerge, Ethan realized that Olivia's past was just a smokescreen, a convenient distraction from the real scandal that threatened to engulf his family's empire. And his mother, had she known? Was she involved? With a newfound determination, Ethan reached for his phone. He had to find Olivia, had to make her understand that she had nothing to be ashamed of, that her past didn't matter to him. But more than that, he needed her by his side for the battle that was to come. For Ethan Westbrook, heir to one of New York's most powerful families, was about to declare war on the very institution that had shaped him. And he would need all the allies he could get. As he dialed Olivia's number, praying she hadn't already discarded her phone, Ethan's mind whirled with plans and contingencies. He would find her, he would uncover the truth, and together, they would bring down anyone who stood in their way, even if it meant dismantling the Westbrook legacy piece by piece. Little did he know that Olivia, tears still fresh on her cheeks, was already embarking on a journey of her own, one that would lead her to uncover secrets from her past that would shake her to her very core and ultimately bring her back to Ethan in a way neither of them could have ever imagined. As Olivia wandered the rain-slicked streets of New York, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions and fragmented memories. The weight of her decision to leave Ethan pressed heavily on her heart, but beneath the pain of their separation, a spark of defiance began to flicker. No, she muttered to herself, stopping abruptly in the middle of the sidewalk. I'm done running. I'm done letting my past control me. With a newfound determination, Olivia hailed a taxi. As she slid into the back seat, she gave the driver an address she hadn't visited in years, the foster home where she had spent her teenage years. Time to face my demons, she whispered, watching the city lights blur past the rain-streaked window. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan was a man on a mission. After countless unanswered calls to Olivia's phone, he had shifted gears, focusing on the damning information he had discovered in the file. He sat in his home office, documents spread out before him, piecing together a puzzle that grew more disturbing with each connection he made. "Mr. Westbrook?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "There's a Miss Chin here to see you. She says it's about Olivia." Ethan's head snapped up. "Send her in immediately." Moments later, Mia Chin burst into the office, her face a mixture of worry and determination. "Mr. Westbrook, I know I shouldn't be here, but I'm worried sick about Olivia. She's not answering her phone, and after everything that's happened." "Please, call me Ethan," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "And I'm glad you're here. I need your help, Mia. Olivia's in trouble, but it's bigger than just her. There's something rotten at the heart of Westbrook Industries, and I think Olivia might be the key to unraveling it all." As Ethan filled Mia in on what he had discovered, her eyes grew wide with shock and then narrowed with determination. "I think I might know where she's gone," Mia said slowly. "There's a place she mentioned once, a foster home where she lived as a teenager. She always said she'd go back someday, to make peace with her past." A spark of hope ignited in Ethan's chest. "Do you know the address?" Mia shook her head. "No, but I know it's in Brooklyn. Saint Something's Home for Girls." It wasn't much, but it was a start. As Ethan and Mia raced out of the penthouse, neither of them noticed the sleek black car that pulled away from the curb, following at a discreet distance. Across the city, Olivia stood on the steps of St. Agnes Home for Girls, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorbell. The building looked smaller than she remembered, the once cheerful yellow paint now faded and peeling. But the memories it held were as vivid as ever. Before she could press the bell, the door swung open, revealing a familiar face that had aged but lost none of its warmth. Sister Mary Catherine, the nun who had been more of a mother to Olivia than anyone else in her life, stood before her, a look of astonishment on her face. "Olivia? Is that really you, child?" With a choked sob, Olivia threw herself into the older woman's arms. "Sister Mary Catherine, I need your help." As Sister Mary Catherine ushered her inside, neither of them noticed the black sedan that cruised slowly past the home, its tinted windows concealing the occupants within. Inside the home, in the cozy office that smelled of lemon furniture polish and old books, Olivia poured out her story to Sister Mary Catherine. The kind-faced nun listened without judgment, her weathered hands clasped around Olivia's trembling ones. "Oh, my dear girl," Sister Mary Catherine said when Olivia had finished. "You've carried this burden for far too long. It's time to let it go." "But how?" Olivia whispered, feeling once again like the lost, scared teenager she had been when she first arrived at St. Agnes. "How can I face Ethan, knowing what I've done?" Sister Mary Catherine's eyes twinkled with a wisdom born of years counseling troubled young women. "By remembering that we are not defined by our mistakes, Olivia, but by how we choose to rise above them. The girl I knew all those years ago had a strength in her that nothing could break. I see that same strength in the woman before me now." As Olivia absorbed these words, feeling a weight lifting from her shoulders, a commotion outside caught their attention. They rushed to the window just in time to see Ethan's car screeching to a halt in front of the home, with Mia in the passenger seat. Olivia's heart leapt into her throat. "He's here. Oh God, sister, what do I do?" But before Sister Mary Catherine could respond, another car pulled up, the black sedan that had been following them. The back door opened, and Victoria Westbrook emerged, her face a mask of cold fury. "It seems we have quite the family reunion on our hands," Sister Mary Catherine mused, her tone deceptively light. "Perhaps it's time for all the secrets to come out, don't you think?" Outside, Ethan was already halfway up the steps when he spotted his mother. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice hard with anger. Victoria's lips curled into a sneer. "Protecting you, darling. As I've always done." "Protecting me?" Ethan scoffed. "By blackmailing Olivia? By covering up years of corruption and fraud within our company?" Victoria's eyes widened in genuine surprise. "What are you talking about?" But before Ethan could respond, the front door of St. Agnes opened, revealing Olivia with Sister Mary Catherine by her side. The sight of her stole Ethan's breath away. Even with her eyes red from crying and her hair disheveled, she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "Olivia," he breathed, taking a step towards her. "Don't you dare," Victoria hissed, grabbing his arm. "Have you forgotten everything I told you about her past?" "I don't care about her past," Ethan said firmly, shaking off his mother's grip. "I care about our future. And right now, that future involves getting to the bottom of what's really been going on at Westbrook Industries." As Victoria sputtered in indignation, Sister Mary Catherine's calm voice cut through the tension. "Perhaps we should all come inside. It seems there are many truths that need to be spoken today." One by one, they filed into the home. Ethan and Olivia, their eyes locked in a silent communication of love and apology. Mia, protective and wary. Victoria, her usual poise shaken by the unexpected turn of events. And finally, Sister Mary Catherine, a serene presence in the eye of the emotional storm. As they settled into the home's small sitting room, the air thick with unspoken words and simmering tensions, Sister Mary Catherine took charge with the practiced ease of someone used to mediating conflicts. "Now then," she said, looking around at the assembled group. "Who would like to begin?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, it was Olivia who broke the silence. "I will," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She turned to Ethan, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Ethan, there's so much I need to tell you, about my past, about why I left." But Ethan shook his head, reaching out to take her hand. "Olivia, I know. I saw the file my mother had on you. But none of it matters to me. What matters is that you're here now, and that we face whatever comes next together." Victoria made a sound of disgust. "Oh, please. Ethan, darling, you can't be serious. This girl is nothing but trouble. She'll bring scandal to our family, ruin everything we've built." "No, Mother," Ethan said firmly. "If anyone's bringing scandal to our family, it's the people who've been using Westbrook Industries as their personal piggy bank for years. People like Charles Blackwood." At the mention of Charles's name, Victoria's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" Ethan pulled out a stack of documents from his jacket. "It's all here, Mother. The embezzlement, the insider trading, the connections to organized crime. Charles has been bleeding the company dry for years, and I have a feeling you've known about it the whole time." As Victoria sputtered denials, Mia spoke up. "That's why you were so desperate to get rid of Olivia, isn't it? You were afraid she'd somehow uncover the truth." "That's ridiculous," Victoria snapped. "I was simply trying to protect my son from a gold-digging little nobody who dash." "That's enough." Sister Mary Catherine's voice cracked like a whip, silencing everyone. "Victoria Westbrook, I've heard quite enough from you. It's time you heard a truth that's been buried for far too long." All eyes turned to the nun, who fixed Victoria with a steely gaze. "You speak of scandal and ruin, but you've been living with a secret of your own, haven't you? A secret that goes back to this very home, over 30 years ago." Victoria's face drained of all color. You can't. You swore you'd never tell." "Tell what?" Ethan asked, looking between his mother and Sister Mary Catherine in confusion. The nun's eyes softened as she turned to Olivia. "My dear, the reason I recognized you the moment you arrived at St. Agnes all those years ago wasn't just because of your resemblance to your mother. It was because you were the spitting image of your grandmother, Victoria Westbrook." A stunned silence fell over the room. Olivia felt as though the floor had dropped out from beneath her. What are you saying?" Sister Mary Catherine took a deep breath. 32 years ago, a young woman named Victoria Callahan came to St. Agnes. She was 17, scared, and pregnant. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, who she named Elena. That baby was your mother, Olivia. Victoria had sunk into a chair, her face buried in her hands. Ethan stood frozen, his mind struggling to process this revelation. But that would mean... Olivia stammered. "That you're my sister," Ethan finished, his voice barely above a whisper. Sister Mary Catherine shook her head. "Half-sister, to be precise." Victoria gave Elena up for adoption, then went on to marry Jonathan Westbrook a few years later. She never told anyone about the baby she'd left behind. Olivia's head was spinning. She turned to Victoria, who looked more vulnerable than Olivia had ever seen her. "Is it true?" she asked softly. Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I was so young, so scared. My parents would have disowned me if they'd known. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving her a chance at a better life. But then why?" Olivia pressed. "Why try so hard to keep Ethan and me apart?" "Because I recognized you," Victoria whispered. "The moment I saw you at that gala, I knew. You looked so much like Elena, like me when I was young. I was terrified that the truth would come out, that everything I'd built would come crashing down." Ethan, who had been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly strode across the room and enveloped Olivia in a tight embrace. "You're my sister," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "All this time, you were family and we never knew." As Olivia returned his embrace, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known before, Sister Mary Catherine spoke again. "There's more, I'm afraid. Olivia, your mother Elena, she came here looking for information about her birth mother years ago, shortly before she passed away. She left something for you, in case you ever came looking." The nun went to a locked cabinet and returned with a small box. With trembling hands, Olivia opened it to find a letter and a USB drive. "She knew," Olivia whispered, tears flowing freely now. "She knew about Westbrook Industries, about the corruption. That's why she got involved with those people, why she was trying to gather evidence. She was trying to expose the truth." As Olivia read through her mother's letter, the full picture began to emerge. Elena had uncovered evidence of widespread corruption within Westbrook Industries, tracing it back to Charles Blackwood and his connections to organized crime. She had been gathering proof, intending to bring it all to light, when she had died in what had been ruled an accident but now seemed far more sinister. "She left all of this for you, Olivia," Sister Mary Catherine said gently. "She wanted you to know the truth, about your family and about the company that bore your name." Ethan, his arms still around Olivia's shoulders, turned to face his mother. "Did you know about this, Mother? About what happened to Elena?" Victoria shook her head, her eyes wide with genuine shock. "No, I swear it. I didn't know what Charles was involved in. I just knew he helped keep the company profitable, kept our lifestyle intact. I never asked questions." "Well, it's time we all started asking questions," Ethan said firmly. He looked down at Olivia, a newfound determination in his eyes. "What do you say, sis? Ready to clean house and set things right?" Olivia looked around the room, at Ethan, her newfound brother and the man she had thought she could never have, at Mia, her loyal friend who had stood by her through everything, at Sister Mary Catherine, who had given her the strength to face her past, and finally at Victoria, the grandmother she had never known she had, a woman who had made terrible mistakes but who now looked at Olivia with a mixture of regret and hope. In that moment, Olivia felt a strength she had never known before. She was no longer the scared girl running from her past or the maid afraid to reach for happiness. She was Olivia Martinez Westbrook, and she had a legacy to reclaim. "Let's do it," she said, squeezing Ethan's hand. Together. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Armed with the evidence Elena had gathered and the additional information Ethan had uncovered, they went to the authorities. Charles Blackwood and his associates were arrested in a series of dramatic raids that made headlines across the country. Westbrook Industries underwent a massive restructuring, with Ethan and Olivia working side by side to root out corruption and restore the company's integrity. It wasn't easy. There were board members to convince, employees to reassure, and a skeptical public to win over. But with each passing day, the siblings grew closer, their shared determination to honor their mother's memory and build a legacy they could be proud of driving them forward. Victoria, shaken by the revelations and facing her own legal troubles for her years of willful ignorance, began the long, difficult process of making amends. Her relationship with Olivia was fragile, built on shaky ground, but there was a genuine desire on both sides to forge a connection. As for Olivia and Ethan, the nature of their relationship had changed dramatically, but the love they felt for each other remained. What had once been romantic love transformed into a deep, unshakable bond of sibling affection. They became each other's staunchest allies, supporting one another through the challenges they faced. Months passed, and slowly but surely, the storm began to calm. Westbrook Industries emerged from the scandal stronger and more ethical than ever before. Olivia, no longer content to remain in the shadows, took on a leadership role in the company's newly established charitable foundation, using her experiences to help others who had grown up in the foster system. It was at the grand reopening of the Westbrook Center for Youth Services that Olivia found herself standing at a podium, looking out over a sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all eager to hear what she had to say. She saw Ethan in the front row, beaming with pride. Beside him sat Mia, who had become an invaluable part of their team and a dear friend to both siblings. Sister Mary Catherine was there too, her kind eyes twinkling with approval. And in the back, trying to blend in but unmistakable to Olivia's eyes, stood Victoria, her posture tense but her gaze fixed intently on her granddaughter. Olivia took a deep breath, her hand steady on the podium as she began to speak. "A year ago, I stood in a ballroom not far from here, feeling like an imposter in a world I didn't understand. I was laughed at, judged, and made to feel small," she said, her voice clear and strong. "But today, I stand before you not as an outsider, but as a proud member of the Westbrook family and a leader in our community." She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. "My journey has taught me that our past doesn't define us. It's the choices we make, the people we choose to become, that truly matter. Westbrook Industries has been given a second chance, and we intend to use it to make a real difference in the lives of those who need it most." As Olivia continued her speech, detailing the plans for the youth center and the company's renewed commitment to ethical business practices, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. The secrets that had haunted her for so long were now in the open, transformed from sources of shame into wellsprings of strength and purpose. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled and chatted, Olivia found herself face to face with Victoria. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of their complicated history hanging between them. "You did well up there," Victoria said finally, her voice softer than Olivia had ever heard it. "Your mother would have been proud." Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly. I hope we can continue to get to know each other better." Victoria nodded, a small but genuine smile tugging at her lips. "I'd like that very much." As Victoria moved away to speak with some board members, Ethan appeared at Olivia's side, slinging an arm around her shoulders. "So, little sis, how does it feel to be the toast of New York society?" Olivia laughed, leaning into her brother's embrace. "Honestly? A little surreal. But in a good way." "Well, get used to it," Ethan grinned. "Because this is just the beginning. We've got big plans for Westbrook Industries, and I can't think of anyone I'd rather have by my side." As they stood there, surrounded by well-wishers and the bright promise of the future, Olivia marveled at how much her life had changed. From a lonely girl in foster care to a maid laughed at by the rich, and now to a respected businesswoman and philanthropist, it had been a journey full of twists and turns, heartbreak and joy. But through it all, she had discovered a strength within herself she never knew she possessed. She had found family, both in the brother she never knew she had and in the friends who had stood by her through thick and thin. And she had learned that sometimes, the greatest triumphs come from facing our deepest fears and refusing to let them define us. As the evening wound down, Olivia found herself on the balcony of the center, looking out over the twinkling lights of New York City. Mia joined her, handing her a glass of champagne. "Penny for your thoughts?" Mia asked, bumping Olivia's shoulder playfully. Olivia smiled, taking a sip of her drink. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. A year ago, I was cleaning hotel rooms and dreaming of a better life. Now look at us." Mia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You know, when all this first started happening, I was worried. I thought I might lose my best friend to this glamorous new world. But you've stayed true to yourself through it all, Liv. You haven't forgotten where you came from." "And I never will," Olivia said firmly. "Everything I've been through, everyone I've met along the way, it's all part of who I am. I wouldn't change it for anything." As they clinked glasses, a commotion from inside caught their attention. They turned to see Ethan approaching, a mischievous grin on his face and a karaoke microphone in his hand. "Oh no," Olivia groaned, but she was already laughing. "What are you up to?" "Well, dear sister," Ethan said, his eyes twinkling with mirth, "I think it's time we showed these stuffy socialites how to really celebrate. Care to join me for a duet?" For a moment, Olivia hesitated. The old her, the one who had always tried to blend into the background, would have refused. But she wasn't that person anymore. "You know what? Let's do it," she said, taking the microphone from Ethan. "But I get to choose the song." As they made their way back inside, Olivia arm in arm with her brother and her best friend, she felt a sense of completeness she had never known before. The journey had been long and often painful, but it had led her exactly where she was meant to be. The once humble maid, laughed at by the rich, had not only found her place among them but had risen above, bringing with her a compassion and understanding born of her experiences. And as she took center stage with Ethan, ready to belt out a karaoke tune to the amusement and delight of the gathered crowd, Olivia knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that she was, finally and completely, home. As the music started and Olivia's clear voice filled the room, those who had once looked down on her now watched in admiration. The secret from her past, once a source of shame, had become the key to unlocking a future brighter than she could have ever imagined. And so, with a song in her heart and hope in her eyes, Olivia Martinez Westbrook embraced her new life, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead.